This is an anniversary trip, and I felt like Heather asking about my prenup in a very calculated way.
He's such a savvy businessman. He would not marry someone without a prenup.
Felt like she was talking badly about my marriage, and we needed to clear that before she celebrated our anniversary. You have come very hard for me. I am not a good friend. I am terrifying. My husband was stupid not to have a prenup with me.
You are putting words in my mouth.
No, Heather, those
really
are all words you have said.
I think it is stupid for anyone to not have a prenup.
Well, I brought it up. I like softballed it to her.
Are you attracted to him?
Because he has money or because we have an age difference? Because that feels like a real low blow.
Wait, but how would that be a softball?
Well, because I know that everyone was whispering about it behind her back.
I've never called her a gold digger, just so we know,
Yeah.
but I have heard people say that about Bronwyn. She's married to a much older man. So, I mean,
that's what people are gonna think.
That's what happens. I was glad when my dad got remarried that she was only 10 years younger. If she were any younger, I would have lost my mind.
Bronwyn herself had made a bevy of jokes about my 26-year-older husband.
I have sex with someone who is old enough to have gout.
I've been called not hot enough to be a trophy wife.
Everybody thought I wasn't cute enough to be a trophy wife.
I joke about people's assumption that I'm a gold digger or a trophy wife all the time, mostly because it just disarms the situation. I kind of lead with that always, and then I assume it's done, and we're over it, because I've already made a joke.
It's kind of like, come on, get some new material, because that's low-hanging fruit.
It is.
I know what that feels like.
Where I think I started to get so upset with Brittany and Heather is to call me a gold digger is like not that funny and not that original, and like it gets tired. But I thought that the continued talk about prenup and whatever else starts edging it away from me and edging it into Todd is stupid. And I just don't really tolerate a lot of disrespect for Todd. So saying he was stupid to not have a prenup, and then when I called Heather on that saying, no, I'm supporting women having a prenup, it's what I see Heather doing, where she gets caught doing something too far and tries to twist it.
Marriage is a financial transaction, and you and I both know this.
In no way, shape, or form was that a friendly comment. I'm not gonna be twisted by that.
If Heather said the same thing to me, I would not be offended by it, even if I was like married to like someone much older, like Jeff Bezos, you know, like.
I feel like the bar is on the floor. Like, just step over it. Just say, I see why it bothered you. Like, anything. She wasn't gonna give me anything.
I mean, she had brought all of these issues to the group, had made 100 jokes about him, and then she like took me to task for commenting on it or having an opinion about it. And you, with your legal background, know, for someone with such an age disparity and such wealth disparities, prenups are a common practice.
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
Yes and no.
Okay, if you want to take Bronwyn's side right now, just choose that you're taking Bronwyn's side right now.
No, it's not about that. Because there are a lot of reasons where it's more advantageous to have one, and there are a lot of reasons where it's more advantageous not to have one. If everything's a premarital asset and tied up, you don't even want a prenup.
You say you're a trader at Goldman Sachs. You talk that you're this intellectual guru, and then you just like marry for love. What? I feel like that's a mixed message.
Well, I don't understand. Being smart and driven doesn't mean you can marry for love. What are you
saying? No, it can't.
It
means you're a fool.
I think you want to revise that statement.
I don't. I stand behind it 100%. I just think she's picking and choosing what she wants to be upset with me about, because she wanted to justify the fact that I was never going to be invited on that trip. I was never included on that trip. She had wanted it to be a couples trip, and she wanted a way to do that without having her hands dirty.
If there was any idea that I was a gold digger and we were not friends, then what would it make her to get on my private plane and come to the house I paid for? An extension of a gold digger? You know, like, you're also getting a free vacation out of this man at this point if you don't like his wife.
She wanted to hurt my feelings and create a huge divide between us. She did just that. Don't plan a girls' trip with the people that I'm closest to and then tell me it's my fault I'm not included.
I think after, you know, like the comments were repeated to me that Angie made.
She said, my daughter needs me, like she's just not in the room playing video games.
I'm like, I'm already dealing with enough. Like, I've got Jack, who's a 180 kid from Henry. Jack would have a birthday party and like the whole town would come. Like, where Henry, I threw a birthday party for him and nobody came.
He sent out like a last-minute invite to kids and they went to another kid's party instead of his.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Don't make me cry. Like, but it was like, hard because I'm like, oh my gosh, Henry was with us in New York. Maybe it's my fault because I didn't get the invites out early. With Jack home, it was a different dynamic because Henry had Jack to lean on, and that was like his best friend. And Jack was so nice. Jack has a huge bed, and he'd be like, Henry, you can sleep in my room if you lay across the bottom of it. So he lost his person. And so, like, as a mom, you're just like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing the right thing? Am I loving Henry the way he needs to be loved? Like,
so Angie mom shaming you, like that's such a low blow.
it's like the meanest thing
That
ever.
is
And it's like you're
literally the
figuring
meanest thing
out
ever.
like what life is like without Jack. He's my baby.
Yeah.
For Angie to denigrate that.
I don't let her sit. I mean, we each other all the 2 in the morning.
When he's coming in the room and wanting to talk to Angie while I'm on the phone with her, he'd be like, put Angie on speaker, put Angie on speaker. So I'm like, why are you going after me? And you know, it's hard. I think with Henry is such a kind kid, you know, like with Snapchat, like he's taking on other people's emotions and thinks he has to fix their problems. But I think he's figuring out his own identity. He's like in 7th grade.
Oh, that's such a hard age.
And he's like figuring out, like, I sent him this thing, Warren Buffett, like, keep your circle small.
Yeah.
And he goes, who is that?
He's a little bit of a big
But I'm like,
deal.
keep your friends small. But like, Jack had an outstanding class. Like Henry's class, like half of them will probably end up in prison. Like,
Are you serious?
they're just different
Just
kids.
the luck of the draw.
Like the things, like one of his friends sent me a message that said, F you to me on Snapchat. Like,
You're joking.
No, and I'm like, Henry, and he goes, I'm very upset about that, Mom. Like, I would never say that to you. But I'm like, your friend did. Like, get new friends. But it's stressful
You could
as a
just
mom.
skip over the junior high age. That's when I moved from San Diego to Sacramento.
Was it hard?
Oh, I went from Valley Junior High, where we were like king of the hill, and I was like, I'm not in Kansas anymore. And everyone was like spraying fart spray on me.
Oh
and
my
like,
gosh.
Oh, I had the worst. So trust me when I tell you, if you could skip over those junior high years, just shelter him until high school.
I know, he's in a lot
Honestly.
of activities, which I think helps. It's just they're so different, and it's like, he'll always say, I'm not Jack. Like, I'll be like, Jack loved this, I'm not Jack, you know?
And he's not.
No, he's not. And it's like,
Jack could have handled it. but-
understanding, like, Henry handles it well, it's just 180.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, do you care that I said on camera that, like, no one came to your birthday party? He goes, it's true.
Bless his
But it was
little
hard for
heart.
him because, like, I
That's
had,
happened
like...
to me. That is the worst
Yeah,
feeling
and
ever.
my best friend's kids came up, and one of my neighbors, I begged her, I'm like, please bring your kid, like, I'm begging you. And they showed up at the end, but you go the first hour with your parents, you're like, oh my gosh. He was like, get me out of here, get me out of here.
Yeah.
But he's like his own person when I say he's like me, because he can just, he's comfortable being by himself.
See, I don't see you as like that. You are very comfortable being the queen bee. In a good way. You're like the kind Regina George, which
Thank
I
you.
relate to.
Thank you.
Because
I'm
I'm
the
the
kind
kind
Regina.
Regina George. I think that's why we click.
Probably.
In my friend group, I'm the kind Regina George.
Aw.
And
I'm the kind Regina
definitely
George, like
see,
Brittany.
I definitely see that in you.
But I think,
but
like...
that's Jack, too.
Jack is very...
He's very leadership.
He has St. Laurent loafers on his mission. I don't know what to do with him.
Heather, you and Bronwyn reached a boiling point at her house.
I was in the middle of an audition, which I was not prepared for.
I don't understand why you even invited me over.
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I invited you over because I am inviting everybody on a trip this weekend. And I don't know that you and I are in a place for you to come, but I think if I don't invite you, that is gonna cause a huge issue, and you and I will never move past it.
So you're planning a trip, and I'm here to, like, sing for my supper and, like, earn an invite?
I didn't even have a monologue. I had no script. I had done zero preparation. I was wearing a sweater and
scroll
jeans.
of apology.
I would have shown up with a fedora or some sort of character hat.
I had not said anything about the trip. I just said, come over. And when she came over, I tried to apologize and work it out, and it wasn't going well. And so I said, look, the bottom line is, I'm taking everybody to Palm Springs, and I would like to invite you, but I think we have to fix it first. And if you don't come, we'll never fix it. And she took that as she had to come kiss the ring at my house.
I'm, like, thinking we're working on our friendship. I have no idea that Palm Springs is even in the works. Because why would you invite someone over to work on your friendship and then, like, let them know, I've also planned a girls' trip that you're not included on? So, like, the stakes are a little bit higher than us just having a clean slate moving forward. Now you're here at my house, and I'm gonna dangle this trip and say, like, listen, if you can say the right things and do the right things and convince me that, like, you're gonna be the, I don't know what she wanted me to convince her of, otherwise I might have done it just to go on the trip. I mean, what? What was I supposed to do?
And that is not how I intended it. But as soon as that was the idea in her mind, she wanted out. She didn't want to be at my house. She wanted to leave. And I got really spicy. To not be able to say anything that you've done in this is truly lacking self-awareness. And I canceled her plane ticket. In one fell swoop.
Wow.
And I was frustrated because it is hard for me also to admit when I'm wrong. And I tried to, like you would a child, teach them the way, model the way. I thought we were talking about everybody, so I can apologize for those kind of things.
You put yourself out there
to get one.
Yeah.
So it almost felt worse. If she is saying something she doesn't know about me, I'm a gold digger, Todd needed a prenup, I can brush that off. But when she came to my home and I made an effort and it wasn't good enough, that does hurt. That does cut deeper.
I think that, quite honestly, the rest of us, because Heather is so good with her words and she's not quick to take accountability and she's very exhausting to fight with because she's so good with her words. I think the rest of us kind of backed down with her, and you did not. She met her match.
Well, I didn't handle it great because my feelings were hurt, and I was pissed. These are my friends.
Right.
You're coming into this group. You're trying to make friends with everyone. You're preaching, I'm just a woman of love and inclusivity, but I'm going to plan a trip and invite everyone except for you.
Especially because you are actually a part of this group of friends from the beginning.
I'm the hub of the wheel, Meredith. I'm the hub of the goddamn friendship wheel. Bitch, who are you? I don't have to sit here and tell you my weaknesses and my faults and my failings and friendships. Like, my friends know. They know that I am a hot mess, but we have been through it together. And I am not here to mea culpa you. Like, you want to make a move and go on a girls' trip without me? Own that move. But don't make me like do a little song and dance and then still get rejected. I'm pissed about this. Can we move on?
Well, at least your triggers are consistent.
Triggers are consistent. Listen, I've been in her house and she's messier than me, if you know what I mean.
The blow-up industry loves Bronwyn.
Yeah, I'm keeping Amazon afloat.
How many inflatable costumes do you have?
Last count, I had 110. Oh my God. Everything. I have a pinata, I have a shark, I have multiple colors of unicorns. So I bought an inflatable costume, I think when Gwen was 2. She had to have like a little pediatric dental surgery, and I did it as like a joke for Gwen, and it was super funny, and she thought it was hilarious, and it was right around Halloween, and these things came out, and they're like mascot heads, and so we bought a couple, and Gwen and I used to joke around with them. We would surprise each other in them, and it's escalated over the years. Todd can be so much fun and so sweet and so thoughtful, but he does have a really hard exterior of like serious businessman, don't play around.
You know how I feel about all of it, so I'm done.
So I like to embarrass Todd. So when Todd and I were first dating, he was on a trip and he had lent me his car and I promptly crashed it while he was gone. And I went to pick him up at the airport and I brought Gwen so he couldn't yell at me. And he knew, like as he was coming down the escalator, he was like, oh, Gwen's here. She's not gonna break up with me, but she has bad news. She probably crashed my car. Like he knew immediately. So the next time he came back in town, I met him at the airport in an inflatable costume and was like, no car crashes happened while you were gone. It was like this joke. And he was so mortified that I was like, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. And it has just spiraled out of control. I think he like lovingly hates it now because if I don't do it, if I'm in a hurry and I go to pick him up at the airport and I don't park and get out and go in the airport, he'll be like, is everything okay? What's going on at home? Is there a problem? Like he assumes if I don't do it that there's something wrong. So I think he expects it and likes it. And, you know, he does it to other people. Like when we picked Gwen up from her first day of school in middle school, we both wore heads to pick her up and she saw us and like walked the other way and he got out of the car and was like, Gwendolyn, Newport, like trying to make sure everyone saw him dressed as a sloth. So if he thinks it's funny to do to Gwen, you know, when her first date comes to pick her up at the house, then I do it to Todd, yeah. And Gwen gets disappointed. Sometimes I pick up Gwen when she goes to see my parents, and she'll be like, oh, I guess I'm not as important as Todd. Nobody bothered to put an inflatable on for me. Like, they get fussy when I don't do it. So now I do it at home. Like, sometimes Todd will wake up on Thanksgiving morning, and I'll be dressed as a turkey in the kitchen, And, I mean, I make my parents do it now. Like, my parents were here at Christmas, and we went to pick up Todd, and that's my dad and my mom and Gwen and I, all in Christmas ones. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.